So, hi, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Miracle Wilson here at GEFA, Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, as an energy program manager. Just to go over a few housekeeping rules as several participants still keep coming in. All mics and cameras have been turned on, so if you do have a question, please submit that in the Q&A box and we will get to that and get that answered as well. Also, we will have this recorded and it will be updated on our website for you to later see. And that is just a few housekeeping rules for everybody today. So please definitely use that chat box for any additional questions. Let's go ahead and get started. So here today we're working on, we're going to be talking about energy resiliency strategies for critical operations and the program and the speakers that we have today. Today's agenda, we're going to go an overview of who GEFA is and our resiliency efforts and how we play a role in that in our state. We'll have a few industry speakers from Athens, Clark County, Joseph Cruz, Better Tomorrow Solar, David Ewings, Georgia Power, Katie Clinton, Liam. And we'll also at the end talk about our new program that is launching, our 2026 Energy Resilience Grant Program and those overviews. And if we do have some time at the end, we'll answer some Q&A questions, but also please put those in the chat box. So just to go over a little bit of overview of GEFA and who we are, many of you may know us as well. We are the State Energy Office and the Water Office for Georgia to conserve and improve Georgia's energy, land, and water resources. As mentioned, we do have two branches within our company. So we work on programs and loans such as our Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant that some of you may have gone through, and also our Clean Water and Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund on our Water Division side. So there's several programs that you may have already had experience with to get funding through and loans as well. Go to the next slide. And here, just wanted to go a little bit in depth of our energy resiliency efforts here at GEFA. We, on our energy side, also serve as the energy emergency support function, our ESF 12 lead for the GEMA, Georgia Emergency Management Agency. So during those times, we activated, we'll work on several severe events, voting, major sporting events such as recently FIFA, just to monitor and check on those energy needs and making sure that everything is distributed correctly. There's no power outages or anything like that. So, of course, during those activations, we work heavily with Georgia Power and our EMCs and also our convenience store associations. So, those are your gas stations just to make sure there is proper fuel for emergencies as well. And along with that support function, we really hone in on trying to make Georgia more resilient and offer funding throughout the year to support those efforts. So as you can see, previous funding we've had in the past supported resiliency efforts throughout the state with GRWA, Georgia Rural Water Association example, receiving 9 propane mobile generators, which have been heavily used throughout severe weather events and also just, typical outages that counties and cities may experience. And then in addition, some on this call may have also gone through our 2022 Solar Resiliency Program, which was funding up to $200,000 for feasibility studies through our partner GDS Associates to implement solar and battery installations at two critical facilities. And they also helped us form a best practice guide and an RFP template toolkit that you may have used in the past. And I'll also talk a little bit on that a little bit later as well. And firstly, want to go ahead and get into our speakers. First, we have our previous grantee through that 2022 Solar Resiliency Program, Joey Cruz with Athens, Clarke County. He'll be giving us a little presentation on his experience, and I'll go ahead and hand it off to him. Thanks, Joey.
Thank you, Miracle. Hi, I am Joey Cruz, the Energy Program and Conservation Coordinator for Athens Clarke County Sustainability Department. And I'm presenting on our Solar Resiliency Technical Assistance Project in, it says 2021, but that's whenever the discussion started. The funding was in 2022. So at the start of COVID-19, there were a lot of domestic violence cases. It increased about 3 times. And our Family Protection Center serves 10 counties with sexual violence and domestic violence services. Detectives outreach 24/7 nurse practitioners. We are top 3 in survivor volume. So resiliency technology is recognized as a need to ensure access, proper evidence storage, and a safe environment for survivors. The system we have installing was 2 double axis trackers, totaling 40.32 kilowatts of solar capacity and 192 kilowatt hours of storage capacity. That's about 82 megawatt hours of annual energy production, or 70% of the building's energy consumption. And it equates to roughly $7,000 in annual energy savings. I think the number might technically be a bit higher, but 7,000 is a safe estimate. So we want to talk about some of our lessons through this project. I think one of the biggest points was the importance of inverter selection and data analysis. Some of the inverters we ended up with are good for how they communicated data, but they weren't great in how you could export data from the inverter. So yeah, that's something I would definitely keep in mind is like, what are my goals with what type of data I want to receive or what type of results I'm trying to communicate whenever picking out an inverter. There were also glare studies because this project was right by the airport. And actually, with something that's moving, they want to make sure that it's not going to cause glare to any of the planes that are coming by. It did not take that long. I think they said the application took like 15 minutes or something. I did not fill out that application, so I do not know. But in terms of battery dispatch and maintenance, this is something I come across with on a lot of our solar projects, but who's in charge? So like if something's built for resiliency, it's built to operate during an outage, but who's making sure that battery's charging up before an outage, or who's making sure that the battery even works whenever there's not outages? So it's just really an important thing is to make sure that your staff has that knowledge and has that capability. And another thing we learned about was double axis tracking solar trade-offs. So it is more efficient because it follows the sun, but at the same time, there's an increased maintenance concern because there's more moving pieces, more moving parts. And but another great thing about it is that they're very visible. It's a project that I get brought up a lot whenever I tell people what I do in public. So it's a great way to get people engaging with energy projects without having to throw a bunch of numbers at them.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Joey, so much. We're going to go on to our next speaker with Better Tomorrow Solar. David, you can come on, jump on if you like. And just let me know when to advance those slides.
Can you hear me okay, Miracle?
Awesome. Yes, here you are.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hey, everyone. Next slide, please. Are you controlling it or am I?
Yes. There we go.
All right. Yeah, well, yeah, thanks for allowing us to talk through some of the basics of project development for these solar and resiliency hubs. Um, they're where it's a lot of nuances to understanding solar and really solar for your particular building. And I'll walk you through some of the basics of that. Obviously, solar um, development, it could be a lot more complicated, but the goal right now is just to walk you through some of the basics and some things to look out for as specifically as you think through applying for this grant. Next slide. Um, so I'm going to walk through in just 4 sections, kind of why solar, the different installation types, a little bit about how storage work and resiliency. And so, in the end, we'll kind of wrap it up in some action steps for you all. Next slide. Just the high level with solar, it's considered renewable because again, you really dig once and you install it, and then it's just perpetual. It gives you energy. So it's phenomenal invention that was done here in the U.S. And actually, one of the first installs was in the U.S. and the world was actually here in Georgia. So something we should be proud of. The savings is obviously one of the main drivers for why people do that. And because of the cost of solar has dropped dramatically from its beginning in the 1960s, that's why we're seeing a lot more adoption, not just worldwide, but here in Georgia and also in the U.S. It is cleaner. Again, ultimately, you just have to dig once. So a lot of those carbon offsets, it just continues to provide for the next generation. The autonomy and control part is a big part of, also why even a lot of utility companies like Georgia Power has a lot of solar farms now is because it provides a little bit more consistency in the market where there could be fluctuations due to whether it's international oil conflict, whatever it is. It just provides more stability in controlling your costs. And of course, security when it comes to and resiliency when it comes to if there's power outages, it provides another opportunity. One thing's unique about solar is that I actually also didn't know before getting into this is that solar doesn't really work on its own when power goes out if there's not a battery tied to it. So that's also part of the resiliency effort. Next slide, please. So you'll find a few types of installs. You have rooftop, which tends to be the most cost-effective install. You have ground mount, and ground mount, obviously, there's a little bit more maintenance with vegetation to maintain. Typically, they're fenced, so security is not as much of an issue, but more so just a little bit more maintenance. Canopy is also a little bit higher price point, but it does serve multi-purposes. It can serve for gathering areas, or it can serve for cars, etc. If you do have EV charging, or if you don't. And of course, one of the newer things that's being incorporated in a lot of municipalities, and we'll see even soon even at the airport, is really integrated in the buildings themselves. And so there's a lot of really innovative technology that's coming out day by day around the world when it comes to solar. One of the misnomers I want to just talk through, a lot of the folks on this call, if you're interested in solar, most of your buildings are probably may have a flat roof. And so something I come across often is the concern of damage to the roof. And so I just want to make sure everyone understands that a ballasted system is where the solar just sits on top of the roof, and rarely would you need any penetrations. And so the advantage of that, again, it spreads the load out, and it makes it where there's really not much concern for damage to the roof. It protects a lot of the UV light, so it actually does protect the roof a little bit more. Next slide, please, Brooke. And yeah, this just gives you a general price point. Of course, there's a range depending on the size. Uh, this is generally if you're less than 500 kilowatt system. Obviously, economies of scale start to take into play once you go into very, very large solar farm type systems, where these numbers change a lot. But generally, like I mentioned before, rooftop tends to be the um, just a more economical option. And then, of course, as you go to canopy and carport, they tend to increase a little bit more. Next slide. Yeah, so the development process, the last thing I would say is if to summarize this, is really know your building and start early. Know your building and start early. And because you don't want to get hung up in the middle where you started the process and then there's a much bigger cost that you didn't anticipate. So plan on the front end, and and leverage a lot of the tools that GEFA has in the best practice guide and South Face guides. And we also have some material online that can support helping that planning process. Next slide. So I'll touch on batteries briefly. Like I mentioned, batteries provide it's a big part of not just resiliency, but again, if the power goes out, your solar doesn't work without a battery. And so primarily it's provided for emergencies. And typically people or entities may have generators. And so think of it as a generator, except that it actually provides some savings on a day-to-day. And oftentimes generators need a lot more maintenance because you have to make sure the fuel's fresh. You got to make sure it's operated. It's in my previous line of work, oftentimes during an emergency, generators didn't even kick on. And so, and generators actually can interface with batteries. So you can have, it's not necessarily the either or. The other advantage of batteries is that any additional power you make, you can actually just save it on site and use it. What you save and versus selling back to the grid, that in of itself is not a huge cash flow to justify a battery, but the primary driver would really be for emergencies. One other thing I would say about the economics of batteries is really peak shaving. And so depending on your rate schedule with the utility company, I can help reduce your bills. There's also what's a virtual power plant that I think Georgia Power is going to speak a little bit more to, where they're actually going to help pay for using your battery. And so Sony or EMC already has a program like that, and Georgia Power is coming out with theirs. So it's a great opportunity, to really take advantage of these programs. Next slide. So as I mentioned, plan on the front end and use the technical expertise, right? Whether it's a solar company like us or the other entities out there that can provide technical assistance, but understand your building with a feasibility assessment. Is your roof even ready for solar, right? Because if you're going to replace your roof pretty soon, we won't advise putting solar on it, right? If you're going to replace it more 7, 8, maybe 10 years down the road, then it might be worth putting it on, even if you have to take it off, replace the roof, and put it back on. And being that solar for a commercial, typically the payback is roughly around 7 years. So anything outside of that might be worth it. The interconnection, depending on where you are, the rules change. So again, your solar company could help you with that. And same thing with the historic review. Depending on where you are, there may be additional time that's needed for that. Next slide. Um, I'll touch on this briefly. This just gets into the weeds of depending on, I'm an electrical engineer by trade, so I get a little bit more into this than most folks, but a lot of these technical differences can make a big difference. Some folks just put on the chat that the ROI for solar can be 3 years. We definitely have projects where it's 3 year solar payback. And so we typically say 3 to 7 years, but a lot of the projects we see are less than 5 years. So, but anyway, but this electrical makeup here is is something that can impact your project. So, for example, if you need additional protective relaying equipment because you have delta transformers and different things like that. So that's something where understanding your building with a trained person can really be helpful. Next slide. Uh, and to summarize this here, it's the same thing I mentioned before, is know your building. All that you really need to provide to the solar company is really the 12-month of usage. If you have that usage that's even more granular, that's broken out by hour, then we can actually provide um, more fidelity in the reports that we provide. And the other part, of course, is understanding the electrical. But once that takes place, I would advise doing that alongside the board or the trustee review, because oftentimes most boards and trustees may not, unless they have an expert solar on there, they really don't know much about solar. So there could be a lot of misconceptions that are circulating that a technical advisor in solar can help alleviate. And on the back end, one of the questions we hear often, well, how do I know it's working? So like we spoke about earlier, a lot of the inverters actually can give you reports. They have apps, and you can even work with your EPC or your solar company to get reports monthly on how it's producing. So it's pretty seamless and it's very high tech. And so those are just the main things I just wanted to take away from here. Next slide. So there are a lot of options of financing, and so that's the main thing people can say, well, how am I going to pay for it? So to supplement the grant, let's say you're an award or you're winner of one of the grants, there's a lot of other options to supplement if your system ends up being bigger. Next slide. There are, believe it or not, there are 0% interest loans. There are 0% interest loans that are available, but they're really for the faith-based community. And so that's something one of our partners offers. Of course, you can get a standard loan that has 0% down. And so a standard loan, obviously you would own the system and you also get the incentive. So right now there's around a 30 to 40% incentive that you're able to get on your solar system. So, and that will come back if you're a non-tax-paying entity. It'll come back in the form of a check from the federal government. And then, of course, the last option is having someone else own it, and they would actually maintain it. And if a panel is damaged, they take care of all of that. Obviously, you pay a little bit more than you would for a loan, but it's typically that peace of mind is something people appreciate. Next slide. Yeah, so this is something where at the end of the day, it's really not about solar, but it's really about our community. And so a lot of the savings that a lot of entities see, they're able to reinvest it back in the community. And that's really the goal, right? It's not only diversifying the energy sources we have and being good stewards, but actually a lot of that savings we could reinvest in. So there's an example here of the Arkansas community that was able to reinvest a lot of the savings back into giving the teachers raises that they've experienced from solar. So there's opportunities there. Next slide. Yeah, so oftentimes with solar, especially if it's a larger system, it might be on a roof and really nobody sees it, right? Unless it's like the system that was shown previously for Athens. Clark, it's people may not see it, they may not interface with it. And one of the goals that I like about this industry, it really encourages engagement in the community to think about where their energy sources are coming from and also just to be better stewards of it. And so EV charging is one of those things that has a lot more direct interface as people may have hybrid or EV vehicles. Georgia's number 8 for adoption in the US, which is pretty high for EV adoption. So it gives our employees and guests an opportunity to that peace of mind because they do have a place to charge. Next slide, please. And one of the things I talk in addition to the EV charging is that EV charging can also serve during a resiliency or during a power outage where folks can come to that location to help power. There's a big movement for even electric school buses where they can charge at school, and even looking, very much into the future. A lot of the batteries in our EVs can actually power the buildings for several days. And so that's technology that's also in development to allow that. But at the end of the day, um, some municipalities they do like visibility of their system, and so you can even have a monitor displaying in the foyer of your building, which showing the energy saved to date. So it's another way for engagement and community involvement. Next slide. Uh, so last thing is, get started. If you just want to get general numbers, NREL, of course, has PV watts. That's with the energy, that's a DOE, Department of Energy. They have a calculator for that. We also have a calculator on our website here that you can get access to just to get general numbers if you know the square footage. Of course, you have to actually do a full analysis to get real numbers, but it gives you just a general ballpark on if solar is right for your building. And of course, um, apply for this grant. Even if it helps, even if it's just a little bit, it'll help offset that cost and continue the great work that a lot of these entities do. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. Perfect. And we're going to go into our last, but certainly not least speaker, Georgia Power. We have three speakers, Katie, Clint, and Liam, that will speak a little bit on interconnection and also their Georgia Power program. So I'll hand it over to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Miracle. I appreciate that.
Can y'all hear us okay?
Yes. Good.
Awesome.
Awesome. Katie and everyone, can y'all hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. My name is Clint Massey. I'm a distributed generation supervisor on the customer-sided team in Georgia Power Southern Company, and I'm accompanied here today with our engineering supervisor, Liam Rivera, and our principal, Katie Dobson. We all work together in this group, and our primary function are to help have a successful interconnection of these solar and battery behind the meter installations. And so we have a team of project managers that are paired with interconnection engineers. We accept the application. We work both with the installers and customers to apply for these. We go through various studies, various checks and balances, double checking all the specs that you're putting in, making sure that we verify the voltage that you're at the distribution level, and will eventually lead to a successful project. So that's what my team's here to do to make it successful for the customer and the installer and Georgia Power. And we'll move on to the next slide. All right, so kind of what is a behind the meter interconnection? So I mentioned earlier, and our team evaluates the customer solar generation, both solar and batteries, or a combination of both, that are wired behind the meter to support the affordability and clean energy goals of our customers. And so if you look at the diagram below, you'll see a couple of things. The easiest way I can explain it, when you're riding down the road and you see the poles in the ground, the smaller ones about 20 to 30 feet, that's going to be your distribution. As you see the wide swaths that take up miles and miles, very high, 100 foot plus, those are our transmission. All that is front of the meter. Once we bring the power to your actual facility, regardless if that's a residential or commercial customer, we're talking about behind the meter. Our group specifically does commercial and industrial. So that's of course, your large industrials, medium, large to small businesses, houses of worship, municipalities, hospitals, schools, all those are considered commercial and industrial. So that's what my team takes care of, is the commercial industrial side. And we'll move to the next slide. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, our job here as a team, the reason why our team exists is to have these successful interconnections and to allow you to take advantage of these distributed energy resources that you put on your business, right? Whether that be in front of the, whether that be solar and battery or a combination or either or. And so there are two tariffs associated with this. And with those type facilities, the first one, some of you on the webinar may be familiar, is called R&R 11, or renewable and non-renewable resources. What that allows you to do from a customer benefit standpoint, it first it allows you to offset that energy usage. Okay. And then the second piece of it is that it provides any credit for excess energy you put back onto the grid. You're going to get the solar avoided cost rate plus an additional 4-cent adder. So right now it's around 6.5 to 7.5 cents per kWh. So you're getting that in the form of bill credit. So you get your offset, and then any excess you generate, you're also getting compensated for that in the form of bill credits. The program parameters, it's like I said, it's tariff based. You can find this at the Georgia Power website. The quickest way to do it is Georgia Power R&R 11 on Google. It'll pop it right up. You can take a look at the tariff there. And it is available for behind the meter systems that are equal to or less than 250 kW, which is most of the behind the meter systems we have on system. And then is also capped at 125% of prior year peak demand. So whatever your peak demand was the prior year, the system size that's eligible for that R&R instantaneous credit is capped at that 125%. Now, when you get up to typically larger installations that don't meet that 250 kW, or if we have a situation where the circuit may be constrained during the study process and it cannot export energy, then the other tariff that we have available here is energy offset only. So what this allows you to do is, of course, take advantage of that offset, just like R&R, except there's no compensation for any excess energy. Now, 90+% of the time, those on R&R are over that cap, right? So very, very rarely do we see it under that 250 cap. So these are the larger, some, in the 300s to 400s, all the way up to over a megawatt. And so what we do is advise our customers to take advantage when they're working hand in hand with their installers to maximize the actual facility size that you're installing, to take advantage of the most offset you possibly can, right? You don't want to oversize it or undersize it. You want it kind of in that sweet spot there. Program parameters for the energy offset, available for systems of any size. Like I said, typically we see them over 250, but sometimes below. And I mentioned before, no compensation for any exported energy. And then we may have a requirement, depending on the size and circuit limitations and other circumstances as we study it, where a non-export control may be required to be installed at the facility to prevent that facility from pushing back to the grid.
Clint, just to interrupt you real quick, we have 2 comments in the chat. Are you able to see those?
I am. Okay, so 1 second. I see one about GMEVs.
I think we can answer the second question and we'll get back to the GM question.
Love that.
Yeah. So our team specifically does commercial and industrial. So speaking to residential solar arrays, Liam, I don't know if you or Katie know more about the programs we offer on the residential side, but my team specializes only in commercial and industrial. But we have great resources on our website to kind of talk you through that. And maybe a little more context with the question too. You're asking about 10 kW and larger, and also 15 to 20 kW and beyond. I'm not sure if that's a threshold you're looking to hone in on from your scope or the question, but
yeah, Clint, if I may jump in,
sure.
Basically, for the renewables and non-renewable tariff, the threshold for that purchase the buyback of energy resources that are exported to the grid. For a residential, it's capped at 10 kW. So it doesn't mean that as a residential customer you can install any systems above 10 kW. It just means that you're not gonna be compensated for the energy that is exported to the grid. And so basically there's still these two options still apply. For residential, is just at a way lower threshold. That 10 kW is explicitly our cap there for residential customers. But yes, our team does work for commercial industrial. It's just the system parameters are a little bit different for residential, but it still applies. These two still apply.
Thank you, Liam.
You're very welcome.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. And we'll move to the next slide. And I'll pass this over to Katie Dodson.
All right, thank you, Clint. Yes, I'll cover the upcoming Solar Plus Storage pilot, which is coming very soon. I know that's something that actually David, the previous presenter, mentioned as well, upcoming virtual power plant program. That is essentially what this pilot is. This is a program that will allow Georgia Power to provide incentives to customers who install battery energy storage systems, most often combined with solar facilities on their premises. And in exchange, Georgia Power would have the opportunity to call on those batteries to dispatch to the grid or to serve the customer's load in the event that Georgia Power had a capacity need on the system. So in order to help us meet peak demand. And so we have a few different eligibility requirements for that program. I do have outlined the residential for those of you that are interested in learning more about that program. The size limits are up to and including 25 kW, and that is a combination of the solar and the storage AC capacity to output to the grid. And so residential and commercial and industrial customers that qualify, they could be on either the RNR or EOO on the solar piece of that and also be part of this pilot. So those are kind of looked at separately. For CNI customers, they can go up to 250 kW to participate in the program. But we do, and I think it's very relevant for this audience, we have an additional carve out for MUSH market customers, so municipalities, universities, schools, hospitals, and houses of worship. They can go all the way up to 1 megawatt of combined solar and storage capacity to participate in this pilot program. We also will have the limitation that those systems can't exceed 125% of customers' peak demand, but a customer can be on any rate. And we do allow that third-party ownership arrangement under a solar energy procurement agreement, just the same as is allowed on the solar program side of things. We'll have a couple of different pathways that customers could choose to participate in this pilot. The first being customer-directed, which will be eligible for new and existing systems. So if you have an existing battery energy storage system, there'll be a path that you could participate here. We could also have storage only under this offering, and this gives the customer more control and to be able to respond to utility event calls. So when the utility calls on it, which will be using a third-party aggregator to do so, when we call on the device, the customer can opt out if they so choose. But there will be an upfront incentive and an annual enrollment incentive. And then in addition, there's a performance-based ongoing incentive. So when the customer does respond to our event calls, they'll receive $1.50 per kilowatt hour for each hour that they, for the amount that they deliver to the grid. And we do give a minimum threshold to how often we would call that in a given year so that customers have some certainty over when, how much they could expect to receive in incentives. We have a second pathway, which is utility directed. It's only eligible for new systems, and it gives the utility Georgia Power more control of that battery energy storage system and allows Georgia Power to discharge up to 80% of the battery capacity for grid benefit. So in this case, the customer would not be able to opt out of calls, but they do get a larger upfront enrollment incentive, which goes all the way up to $1,000 per kilowatt of capacity for low and moderate income customers and MUSH market customers. But you would enter into a 10-year contract. And one of the benefits here is that this, if there were a grid outage, that battery energy storage system is still a resiliency asset, even under the utility directed. We would certainly allow the customer to use that to provide as a resiliency backup solution to them if there were an outage. So we are projecting to launch this. You may see the residential side launch around September, but commercial and industrial is supposed to follow shortly thereafter, so early in Q4. Not an exact date yet, but around that time frame. And so you'll start to see more communications from us as we move along in that process. And I want to make sure I answer any questions.
Yeah, Katie, you've got a couple coming through. The first one's about a SEPA. I'll handle that one, but I'll handle when you complete this slide. We have one question about when this program will start. Our projected launch is in Q4 of this year, so it's there at the bottom of the slide. And the second question, Katie, is with the pilot program, it can be a standalone battery for both customer and utility directed, or only customer directed can have a standalone battery?
That'll be only under the customer directed pathway.
And then for the last question here, I just want to, for the sake of time, we'll definitely have an FAQ question. So I'll definitely work with the panelists here to get all of these questions answered if we don't get them answered just in time, because that'll be great.
Sounds good. We love the engagement, though. Keep them coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we can go ahead and move from the slide, and I'll pass it back to Clint to talk through our interconnection process.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, so these are just all the steps in our interconnection process. We do that through an application called Power Clerk. And so when you partner with your installer to start this process, we always ask that you do that as early as you possibly can, right? That allows us plenty of time to make sure that everything's right. Where we run into problems when systems are installed because they cannot operate in parallel with our system without an executed interconnection agreement and without all the studies, et cetera. So we just ask that the sooner the better. In fact, I mean, we are reducing our time on these so much. I mean, I think we set a record a few months ago to have from start of application to permission to operate in 27 days. So that's not typical, but it just shows you how quickly we can move the processes followed. And so you start with submitting that application through Power Clerk. We review the application, and again, it'll ask you. It's very user friendly. Typically, the installer fills this out for the customer, but we've also had customers install it as well. There are certain customer components throughout the process that have to kind of approve us moving forward, because again, we try to keep the customer informed and abreast of everything that we're doing along with the installer. We'll do an engineering review and then an impact study if required. And I won't go necessarily step by step, but I mean, there are several points that we go through to make sure that the system is going to operate in parallel with our system, both safe and reliably. That's the biggest thing. If you don't get anything else out of this process, just know that these processes are tried and true, and they are here to protect the grid, protect our field workers, protect the customer and the installer as well. So we take that safety and reliability at the forefront of everything we do. And then once the interconnection agreement is fully executed, any construction that needs to happen, and when you're ready, we will send someone out to perform a third-party witness test with you all. And once it passes that witness test, we will send you a permission to operate, or otherwise known as PTO. And that's when your system is completely live and can be operated, within its specs that is supposed to, and get you those savings on your bill month to month. And I think I'm passing on to Liam to go a little bit more in depth into the technical considerations.
Yeah, thank you so much, Clint, for that. And I know we have a little bit of a mixed audience, but we did come up with a couple of questions that might be beneficial for you guys to keep in mind as you're installing a solar system or helping a customer install a solar system. So the first thing that I want to hone on is basically what Clint was talking about and going over. Have they submitted an interconnection application? Have they gone through our Power Clerk portal and submitted an application for this particular project? another thing that is super important for us, especially as we work with commercial and industrial customers, is are you on the right rate? So, in essence, like for example, we do have flat bills or um, let's say economic bill that might help you have a fixed bill, and so those we find might not be the most optimum rate for solar, especially as we are incentivizing based on energy consumed, so there might be a little bit of a gap there. And on the technical side, we also want to make sure that the solar system is meeting all of our current standards. And I know Joey mentioned this earlier, but it's super important that we have the accurate inverters and that are in compliance with the latest and greatest IEEE and UL standards. So that's something that our team, the interconnection engineering team, is responsible for verifying and making sure that those are accurate. We also have a couple of policies that might help y'all interconnect the system in the most safe and reliable way. And one of those is their policy, but really it is in essence treated on a case by case basis. And I know we talked about it also with David mentioning the different transformer winding configurations. So those are things that our team evaluates on a case by case basis, basically to make sure that the service is compatible with a solar installation, but also that it wouldn't put anybody's safety at risk once connected. Our team is also responsible for distribution upgrades. So if the current transformer feeding the service is not compatible with a DER, distributed energy resource interconnection, then we might require distribution upgrades for that transformer. Or in some of the commercial and industrial facilities, we do see, for example, fiber installations or equipment installations on our distribution circuits. So we work directly with those, and we partner with the reliability and planning team as we get a little bit higher volume on bigger systems, and I'm talking about systems that are over 250 kW. And so in that case, our planning and reliability team take those projects in and evaluate them while measuring the circuit capacity and the circuit loading on the customer side, just to make sure that everything is good to interconnect there. And based on those reviews, we might find that there's upgrades needed as a result. So yeah, that's pretty much what we work on and what we are keeping an eye out on as we receive these applications. And I think we're good to go on the next slide, and I'll pass it over to Katie to close us out.
All right, thank you. And I'll keep it brief here, but just to close out on everything that we've talked about, essentially our team is focused on balancing the safe, reliable interconnection of customer generation with being able to process applications quickly and efficiently. And so at the end of the day, we're keeping the customer at the center of everything we do. We're making sure that the grid is protected for all of our customers, while enabling customers who want to install solar and battery energy storage systems to do so safely and in compliance with our policy. So at the end of the day, keeping the customer at the center, and that's what we're seeking to do through all of the solar programs solar and battery energy storage programs that we offer. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys. I just want to say thank you to all my speakers. I know we're 10 minutes by the top of the hour, so don't want to rush, but I definitely want to go through the meat of this program overview. So if you do have any additional questions, please just put them in the chat. And like I said, we'll definitely get back with you all on those answers and form a FAQ document for you all, and we'll reach out to the panelists to get any further answers as well. So just to go a little bit in depth of the program that GEFA is launching here is our Energy Resilience Grant program that is funded through the Investment Infrastructure Job Act, also known as IIJA, through DOE. So that funds is very flexible, and with our support that we mentioned earlier to further support resiliency efforts and fill in those gaps between restoration time, we wanted to build this program so applicants can initiate and accelerate and focus on energy resiliency and focus on facilities that are deemed critical in your city, county, or houses of worship as well to operate during power interruptions. And for this program, the eligible applicants will be state and local governments, K through 12 schools, and houses of worships. And allowable projects, similar to our 2022 program, it will be solar installation. Please just note that if anything is over 60 kW, it will require a NEPA review. And that is just a review to go over the system to make sure that it is functioning properly when it comes to groundbreaking or anything like that. So that may take a little bit of extra time when it comes to getting that reviewed strictly through DOE. We'll also offer battery systems and transfer switches, which can be manual or automatic. They both qualify to easily hook up to any generator needs. And that can also be a combination of either, speaking earlier, David mentioned, solar just doesn't work on its own. If you do have solar already, then you can just choose some a battery project. So you can definitely mix and match and have a combination throughout this project when submitting it. And just to talk about some of the meats of the program. So this is a competitive program. So, there will be a grading criteria and scoring involved. We do have a 1.5 million in total funds to give out to multiple projects, which each applicant can request up to $200,000 with a 15% cost match. And this application will open and funding opportunity will open Wednesday, October 19th and close February 11th. There is only one application submitted per applicant. So one site has one application. And I wanted to go into a little bit some of the program requirements. This program will require a feasibility study, energy audit, an assessment, or any similar documentation that is supporting your implementation of this project. And Better Tomorrow Solar and Georgia Power both offer those services as well. So that will need to already be in place and attached to your application, or it needs to be you're working on it as of now. So there needs to be some proof or a recommendation from that other entity that you're working with that this will be completed, that you're already on that road as well. And speaking of the cost match, that cost match will need to be supported by a document of support or source, whether it be in kind cost match or philanthropy cost match or what may have it, just a supporting document on where that 15% funds are coming from. And when it comes to the total cost of the project, we would have to abide by, with this being DOE funds, by the BABA requirements. That's Build America, Buy America. So the total project can't be over $250,000, and that is a requirement through DOE. So this is a combination of what you request from GEFA on top of your cost match. And so that total cap can't be over $250,000. And that documentation is on our website, and we'll have that, of course, listed in our application as well. Of course, we like fully completed applications, and we'll have a sample application up here shortly on our website just to get you guys all prepared and share and kind of get filled out a little bit, practice before the actual application opens up. And lastly, all projects must be completed by March 1st, 2028. So it's a little bit of leeway time. That's great that Georgia Power kind of alluded to faster interconnection times, which is remarkable. So we expect to have you kind of go through the application process. And we are also working with GDS Associates, who we partnered with last time in our program on feasibility studies. So they're also another resource to get those feasibility studies or energy audits and things like that to get you started. So there will be a resource in available for all of the awardees that are granted funds to kind of work on that pre-con, pre-installation pre-installation project before you guys get started. So working with your RFP, kind of building that out. We are also updating our best practice guide. So going through a little bit of those and what to expect and how to handle this type of project that you're about to endure. So that services will be available to those grantees once they are selected. And you'll have that opportunity to work with them up until, of course, you want to start and start your construction on the project. And lastly, I just want to go over some additional information and documents. We do have our program webpage up. Thank you for putting that in the chat. So please go see our program webpage for all of your general information and a highlight of what this program offers. We'll also have that BABA small waiver document linked below to give you more information and details around that requirement. As well, we will have program guidance, which will go into details of what the project funding can be for, how you can spend it, eligible projects, what is resiliency as a whole, and your general criteria will be there as well, kind of just to give you an insight of what your application will be scored and based on. In addition, your sample application will be there, like I said, so you can kind of get started and see that before the application officially opens on August 19th. And just in the future, in the next couple weeks before the application opens, we will have a recording as well on how to fill out your application. So that will go in details of what information we definitely want to see from that feasibility study, supporting documents, and all of the required fields that you will need to fill out in that application. So we will have all of that up, and we are definitely, of course, at time. I would love for you guys to keep submitting your questions here. Please feel free to email me here at mwilson@gefa.ga.gov and submit your questions. As like I said, we are building that FAQ document out of the feedback that you give us, and that will be another resource that we will be able to share on our website as well as our application documents. So thank you all so much for joining. If you haven't already, please click the QR code or scan the QR code and follow us on GEFA. And then again, I would just like to thank all of our panelists. So thank you for joining today.
Miracle, thank you. And to all the panelists, we do have a few questions. I know we're up on time, so if you want to stay for the questions, please feel free to do so. I'm going to run through these quickly. So we had a question regarding the solar plus storage program. What happens if a customer sells their home or business within that 10-year commitment on the utility directed program?
Can y'all hear us okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so and that is something that the actual process for that is something that we're working through. But so that contract would then be assignable to whoever purchased that home or business, you know, after the sale. Essentially, the contract would be assigned to the new owner. But we're working through the logistics of how we'll transfer that responsibility over if and when that happens.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And the follow-up would be, would a new battery storage system added to an existing interconnected solar energy system be considered new or existing?
So that would be considered a new battery, but it would be considered a solar and storage paired system. So we would still be able to evaluate that as a new battery under either program offering.
Yeah. The reason being is because the batteries, what we provide that capacity credit on. And so the solar in essence is great to have, but the batteries, what we provide that energy credit for.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, has there been any discussion of including V as in Victor, 2, G as in George resources like school buses into this type of program? V2G resources.
Yeah, so that's vehicle to grid. So vehicle to grid is not applicable for this program in particular. This is a pilot program. And so it's really intended for either standalone battery energy storage systems or solar and storage systems. It's a 3-year pilot. And so we do have the opportunity to reevaluate at the end of that pilot what future programs might look like. In addition to that, we have a vehicle to grid pilot with school buses that was approved in our most recent integrated resource plan. And so that is also in development. So we're in the pilot phase of both of those programs, and they may evolve in the future.
That's perfect. Yeah. We have a separate program for B2G.
This question might be related to the GEFA rules for the grant program. Are engineering and design eligible costs? How about controls?
So those costs for the request grant are strictly for the implementation. So they aren't for any design costs or I guess when it comes to controls, if it's related back to the actual system, that would have to be interpreted. But yes, so the funds are going to be strictly just for the solar and the battery and the actual implementation of the actual infrastructure of the project.
Thank you. I think this is a good clarifying question. Are projects limited to $250,000 total budget, so there are no issues with BABA, or is this just a reminder that budgets exceeding $250,000 will not qualify for the small grant waiver?
That's a great question. Just to kind of highlight as well, NEPA, we would advise and highly encourage to keep those projects under $250,000. That is to say, once you read the waiver, if you do go over that limit, you are subject to any BABA requirements. That will possibly lengthen the time of review because that does have to go to DOE for further review and feedback. But this small waiver really kind of kickstarts a lot of projects if you are able to stay under that cap limit.
Okay. Are there any unique procurement requirements?
There's no unique procurement requirements. You are suggested to follow your city or county procurement requirements and any flow down requirements through the DOE terms and conditions, which also will be another resource that we will have listed on our website and the QuickBase application portal. So any flow down requirements when it comes to procurement just needs to be adhered to. But there is nothing particular, I would say, that stands out in this program versus anything else. And that is definitely something that as I mentioned earlier, GDS, Georgia Power, or Better Tomorrow Solar, or anything like that can help you with when it comes to figuring out those RFP and procurement questions.
Okay, we're asking for to clarify a little bit on the 15% cost match. So this questioner has a project that's expected to exceed $800,000. So is it that the customer can get $200,000 plus $25,000? So I guess they just want to know how does that 15% cost match play out?
Yeah, so it is a minimum requirement of a 15% cost match. And that is to, I mentioned, to stay within those BABA small waiver requirements, not to go over. But that is to say, if you do go over that, you will be subject to BABA requirements and a further review through DOE. So if you were to add, an extra $25,000 to the $200 or $200,000 grant, that's still within the threshold, so that's allowable.
But exceeding $250,000 total project cost doesn't make it ineligible, correct?
Correct. Yes. I just want to note that it will be subject to a further BABA review, and may lengthen the process time.
Okay. Can engineering costs count as match?
I would not say that is a cost match, an eligible cost match. In kind donations, philanthropy, and things of that nature. I may take that question back and run that up to my director to give you all a more detailed list on what particularly counts as a good eligible cost match. But as of right now, I don't see that being an eligible cost match.
So I do have a question. Are there resources for local governments to, get the engineering conducted at no cost?
Yes, I believe, David, one of our speakers earlier, kind of alluded to, some services, and Georgia Power alluded to, their program, and they also do feasibility studies. I wouldn't be able to answer for everybody and have a list of companies that are able to give those services, but I definitely encourage you to reach out to your partners and those companies that you are interested in and propose this grant opportunity and see what type of work or contribution they can help you with when it comes to a feasibility study and engineering cost.
Okay, we have a question.
And David, yeah, you want to hop on and
Yeah,
ask?
just wanted to add real quick. So as far as the feasibility study, so solar companies like myself, we do come out and provide those services, short of the more in-depth engineering. So what we provide is enough for submitting an application, essentially. So that's something we can certainly come and provide, and there's typically not a cost to that. Sometimes we do go another level where we may reach out to Georgia Power, and there's some associated costs with that, but generally we should be able to come out and provide a high level of feasibility for it.
Thank you.
Another question is, would it make an application more competitive if the organization is exceeding the 15% cost match, or does it matter?
That doesn't matter. So we'll see in the document that'll be uploaded on our website that there is more of an in-depth criteria when it comes to how are you using this resiliency when it comes to your community and your really need for it, and what is your level right now? Are you guys already installing solar? Do you already have, feasibility studies and things like that? So when it comes to a cost match, that doesn't come into play or putting you higher on the criteria list. It's more of the broader, look of the project of how resiliency in this project will help you further get to those goals and limit your outages and disruptions.
Okay, thank you. That's going to wrap our Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you all.